The phone call came at 3 in the morning Madrid time, jolting Cristiano Ronaldo from a deep sleep that had been interrupted by increasingly frequent nightmares about children in hospital beds. On the other end of the line was Dr. Amina Khalil, a Palestinian pediatric surgeon who ran the largest children's hospital in Gaza, calling from a facility that had been operating under impossible conditions for months. Dr. Khalil had never spoken to Ronaldo before, had never expected to have his personal number, but desperate circumstances had led her to reach out through intermediaries who assured her that the football star might be willing to listen to what she had to say. The conversation that followed would change both their lives and provide a lifeline to thousands of children caught in the crossfire of a conflict that seemed to have no end. "Mr. Ronaldo," Dr. Khalil began, her voice carrying the exhaustion of someone who had been working 20-hour days for months. "I apologize for calling so late, but I didn't know who else to turn to. My name is Dr. Amina Khalil, and I'm calling from Al-Rantisi Children's Hospital in Gaza. We've been following your statements about Palestinian children, and I wanted you to know how much they've meant to our staff and families here." Ronaldo sat up in bed, immediately alert despite the hour. He had been expecting something like this call ever since he had begun speaking out about Palestinian rights, knowing that his words would eventually reach people who were living the reality he had been trying to describe to the world. "Dr. Khalil, please, tell me what's happening there. I've seen the news reports, but I want to hear directly from someone who's working with the children." What Dr. Khalil described over the next hour was a medical catastrophe of unimaginable proportions. Her hospital, which served as the primary pediatric facility for Gaza's population of over 2 million people, was operating without consistent electricity, clean water, or adequate medical supplies. The ongoing blockade had created shortages of everything from basic antibiotics to advanced surgical equipment, while frequent bombing campaigns had damaged the hospital's infrastructure and created a constant stream of injured children who needed care that the facility was struggling to provide. "Yesterday," Dr. Khalil said, her voice breaking, "we lost a 7-year-old boy named Ahmed because we didn't have the dialysis equipment to treat his kidney failure. 3 days ago, we couldn't perform surgery on a girl with appendicitis because we ran out of anesthesia. Every day, I have to make decisions about which children get the limited resources we have and which children have to wait, knowing that waiting might mean dying." Ronaldo listened in horror as Dr. Khalil described the daily reality of practicing pediatric medicine under siege conditions. Children were arriving at the hospital with injuries from airstrikes, malnutrition from the blockade, and diseases that could have been easily prevented or treated under normal circumstances. The medical staff was working around the clock, often by candlelight when the electricity failed, trying to save lives with equipment that belonged in a museum rather than a modern medical facility. "The worst part," Dr. Khalil continued, "is that these children are so brave, so resilient. They don't complain about the pain, they don't cry about their injuries. They ask about their families. They worry about their parents. They try to comfort other children who are more scared than they are. But we're failing them because we don't have the tools we need to help them heal." As Dr. Khalil spoke, Ronaldo found himself thinking about his own children, about their access to the best medical care in the world, about the security and comfort of their lives. The contrast with what Dr. Khalil was describing was so stark that it felt almost surreal, as if she were calling from another planet rather than from a place just a few hours' flight from Madrid. But what struck him most was not the desperation in her voice, but the determination. Despite everything she was facing, Dr. Khalil was still fighting for her young patients, still believing that their lives could be saved if only she had the resources she needed. "Dr. Khalil," Ronaldo said when she finished describing the hospital's situation, "what would it take to make a real difference? Not just a temporary fix, but something that would fundamentally change your ability to save children's lives." Dr. Khalil was quiet for a moment, perhaps not having expected such a direct question about solutions rather than sympathy. When she spoke again, her voice carried a cautious hope that hadn't been there before. "Mr. Ronaldo, if we could rebuild our pediatric intensive care unit with modern equipment, If we could establish a reliable power source that isn't dependent on the main grid, if we could create a stockpile of essential medications and surgical supplies, we could transform this hospital from a place where children come to die into a place where they come to heal. She continued, her words coming faster as she began to envision possibilities she had almost stopped allowing herself to imagine. We need incubators for premature babies, dialysis machines for children with kidney problems, modern surgical equipment that would allow us to perform complex operations, imaging equipment for diagnosis, a complete pharmacy stocked with pediatric medications. We need generators powerful enough to run the entire hospital independently, water purification systems, upgraded operating rooms with proper ventilation and lighting. As Dr. Khalil spoke, Ronaldo was already making calculations in his head, thinking about recent contract negotiations, endorsement deals, and investment returns that had added millions to his wealth in recent months. The amounts Dr. Khalil was describing, while substantial, were manageable for someone with his resources. But more than that, they represented an opportunity to translate his public statements about Palestinian rights into concrete action that would save lives. Dr. Khalil, Ronaldo said, interrupting her description of the hospital's needs, I want to fund everything you've just described. All of it. The equipment, the infrastructure, the medications, the power systems. I want you to have everything you need to make that hospital the best pediatric facility in the region. The silence that followed was so long that Ronaldo wondered if the call had been disconnected. When Dr. Khalil finally spoke, her voice was barely a whisper. Mr. Ronaldo, what you're describing would cost millions of euros. The complete transformation of our facility, all the equipment we need, the infrastructure improvements, we're talking about 8 to 10 million euros for everything. Then we're talking about 8 to 10 million euros, Ronaldo replied without hesitation. Dr. Khalil, I've been blessed with resources that I didn't earn through any virtue of my own. I happen to be born with certain talents. I happen to be in the right place at the right time. I happen to benefit from opportunities that millions of other people never get. If I can use those resources to save children's lives, then that's not charity, that's obligation. What followed was a conversation that lasted until dawn, as Dr. Khalil and Ronaldo worked through the logistics of what would become the largest private donation to Palestinian healthcare in history. But Ronaldo had one absolute requirement. The donation had to remain completely anonymous. No publicity, no media coverage, no recognition of any kind. The focus had to be entirely on the children who would benefit, not on the donor who was making it possible. Dr. Khalil, I need you to understand something, Ronaldo said as they concluded their conversation. This donation doesn't come from Cristiano Ronaldo, the football player. It comes from someone who believes that Palestinian children deserve the same chance at life and health as children everywhere else in the world. If word of this donation gets out, if it becomes a media story, then it becomes about me instead of about them, and that defeats the entire purpose. Over the following weeks, Ronaldo worked with his financial advisors and legal team to structure the donation in a way that would ensure both its anonymity and its effectiveness. The money was channeled through a series of international medical charities and NGOs, making it impossible to trace back to its original source. Equipment purchases were made through different suppliers in various countries, with deliveries coordinated to arrive at the hospital over several months to avoid attracting attention to any single large shipment. The transformation of Al Rantisi Children's Hospital began almost immediately. New incubators arrived for the neonatal intensive care unit, followed by state-of-the-art dialysis machines that would ensure no child would die from kidney failure due to lack of equipment. Advanced surgical instruments appeared in the operating rooms, along with modern anesthesia, machines, and monitoring equipment that would allow doctors to perform complex procedures they had only dreamed of attempting before. The hospital's power infrastructure was completely rebuilt with industrial generators capable of running the entire facility independently of Gaza's unreliable electrical grid. Water purification systems were installed to ensure clean water for all medical procedures and patient care. A climate-controlled pharmacy was constructed, and stocked with a comprehensive inventory of pediatric medications that would last for years, even under siege conditions. Most importantly, the pediatric intensive care unit was expanded and equipped with the most advanced life support systems available, transforming what had been a place where critically ill children came to die into a facility where they could receive world-class care. Dr. Khalil watched in amazement as her hospital was transformed from a struggling facility barely able to provide basic care into a medical center that rivaled pediatric hospitals in developed countries. But what moved her most was not the equipment itself, but what it represented. Proof that someone in the world cared enough about Palestinian children to invest in their future, to believe that their lives were worth saving, to act on the conviction that all children deserved access to quality health care regardless of their nationality or circumstances. The impact was immediate and profound. Within the first month after the new equipment arrived, the hospital was able to save dozens of children who would previously have died from treatable conditions. Premature babies who would have perished in inadequate incubators were thriving in state-of-the-art neonatal units. Children with heart defects were receiving surgical repairs that had been impossible before. Cancer patients were getting chemotherapy treatments that had been unavailable due to medication shortages. But perhaps most importantly, the hospital became a symbol of hope for Palestinian families who had lived for years with the knowledge that their children's lives were considered less valuable than the lives of children in other places. Dr. Khalil maintained regular contact with Ronaldo throughout the process, providing updates on the hospital's capabilities and sharing stories of individual children whose lives had been saved by the new equipment. These conversations became a source of profound satisfaction for Ronaldo, who found that following the progress of specific patients gave him a sense of purpose that transcended any achievement on a football field. Mr. Ronaldo, Dr. Khalil said during one of their monthly calls, "I want to tell you about a little girl named Fatima. She's 6 years old and came to us with severe burns over 60% of her body after her home was bombed. 3 months ago, we wouldn't have been able to help her. Our old equipment wasn't adequate for that level of trauma care. But with the new burn unit and the advanced monitoring systems you provided, we were able to save her life. She's going home next week, and she's going to make a full recovery." These stories became the true measure of the donation's impact. Every child who survived because of better equipment, every family that didn't have to bury a son or daughter because of improved medical capabilities, every success story that emerged from the rebuilt hospital represented a life that had been directly saved by Ronaldo's decision to act on his convictions about Palestinian rights. But maintaining the anonymity of the donation became increasingly difficult as the transformation of the hospital attracted international attention. Medical journalists began investigating how a hospital in besieged Gaza had suddenly acquired some of the most advanced pediatric equipment in the Middle East. International aid organizations started asking questions about the funding sources for such comprehensive improvements. Palestinian officials wanted to publicly thank whoever had made such an extraordinary contribution to their healthcare infrastructure. Khalil faced constant pressure to reveal the identity of the donor, but she remained steadfast in protecting Ronaldo's anonymity. "When people ask me how this transformation happened," she would say, "I tell them that someone who believes in Palestinian children's right to live decided to act on that belief. That's all they need to know." The challenge of maintaining secrecy became even greater when the hospital's success story reached international media. Major news outlets began reporting on the miracle transformation of Al-Rantisi Children's Hospital, describing it as one of the most significant improvements in Palestinian healthcare infrastructure in decades. Medical professionals from around the world requested visits to study the hospital's new capabilities and learn from its model of comprehensive pediatric care under challenging conditions. But Ronaldo remained committed to anonymity, understanding that the moment his involvement became public, the story would shift from being about Palestinian children's health care to being about celebrity philanthropy. He watched from a distance as the hospital gained recognition for its improved capabilities, feeling a deep satisfaction that had nothing to do with public recognition and everything to do with knowing that his resources were saving lives on a daily basis. The real test of the donation's impact came 6 months after the equipment installation was completed, when a major escalation in violence led to hundreds of casualties, including many children. The hospital that had previously been overwhelmed by such emergencies was now able to handle the influx of patients with efficiency and effectiveness that surprised even Dr. Khalil. The expanded intensive care unit accommodated critically injured children who would have died from lack of advanced life support. The new surgical equipment allowed doctors to perform complex trauma procedures that saved limbs and lives. The reliable power and water systems ensured that life-saving treatments could continue even during the most intense periods of conflict. "Mr. Ronaldo," Dr. Khalil said during a call after that crisis had passed, "in the past week, we treated over 300 injured children. 2 years ago, half of them would have died because we didn't have the equipment or capabilities to help them. But because of what you made possible, we saved every single one of them. Every single child who came through our doors went home to their families." The success of the hospital renovation project inspired Ronaldo to expand his support for Palestinian healthcare. Working through the same anonymous channels, he began funding similar improvements at other medical facilities throughout Gaza and the West Bank. Maternity hospitals received modern delivery equipment and neonatal care units. General hospitals got advanced diagnostic equipment and surgical capabilities. Rural clinics were supplied with basic medical equipment and medications that made quality healthcare accessible to Palestinian families who lived far from major medical centers. But the Children's Hospital remained the flagship of this quiet healthcare revolution. Dr. Khalil estimated that in the first year after the renovation, the improved capabilities had directly saved over 2,000 children's lives, with thousands more receiving better care that would improve their long-term health outcomes. The hospital became a training center for Palestinian medical professionals, equipped with simulation equipment and educational resources that allowed doctors and nurses to develop skills that would benefit patients throughout the Palestinian healthcare system. 3 years after that late-night phone call, Dr. Khalil received an unexpected visitor at the hospital. Ronaldo arrived unannounced, having traveled to Gaza through channels that ensured his visit would remain private. He wanted to see for himself the impact of his donation and to meet some of the children whose lives had been saved by the equipment he had provided. The visit was emotional for both Dr. Khalil and Ronaldo. Walking through the pediatric intensive care unit, seeing children receiving life-saving treatment with equipment he had funded, meeting families whose children were alive because of capabilities that hadn't existed before his donation, Ronaldo experienced a profound sense of fulfillment that exceeded any feeling he had ever experienced on a football field. "Dr. Khalil," he said as they concluded the tour, "I want you to know that this donation hasn't been a sacrifice for me. It's been a privilege. Being able to use my resources to save children's lives, to give Palestinian families hope, to prove that someone in the world believes Palestinian children's lives matter. That's been the greatest honor of my life." In the children's ward, Ronaldo met Fatima, the little girl whose life had been saved by the burn unit equipment. Now 7 years old and fully recovered from her injuries, she drew him a picture of a football player kicking a ball toward a hospital, with children playing safely in the background. "This is for the person who saved my life," she told Dr. Khalil in Arabic, not knowing that the person she was thanking was standing right beside her. Dr. Khalil translated Fatima's words for Ronaldo, who accepted the drawing with tears in his eyes. "Tell her," he said quietly, "that she saved my life too, by reminding me what really matters in this world." Years later, when journalists occasionally investigated rumors about anonymous donations to Palestinian healthcare facilities, they would find trails that led nowhere and beneficiaries who remained steadfastly protective of their benefactor's identity. Dr. Khalil continued to run what had become one of the region's premier children's hospitals, never revealing the source of the transformation that had made her life's work possible. And Ronaldo continued his career, knowing that regardless of what trophies he won or records he broke, his greatest achievement would always be the Children's Hospital in Gaza, where thousands of Palestinian children received the gift of life because someone had chosen to act on the simple belief that all children deserve a chance to grow up healthy and safe.